Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We have some exciting themes to discuss this weekend. And I appreciate that you all have gathered here in spite of the weather. But even if it was going to be perfectly sunny all day, there's no better place to be than here for this weekend, because we're going to deal with your deepest motivations, your deepest aspirations. Now, it is true that you'll find a discussion of such most profound and deepest aspirations in Bhagavad Gita and its graduate study, Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. These are the famous bhakti texts of India, now spread throughout the world. And that's how I, even though born in New York City and educated at the top prestige level, I wanted something that was the best. So we're going to talk this weekend about success, failure, how to be for real, what is genuine, what is a real human civilization, and why we don't have a real human civilization today, which may be surprising to some of you. Yes, during the course of this weekend, we want to hear questions from you. Some groups that we have for these weekends are very fast off the mark with questions. Others take a while. We'll see what kind of group you are. And let me, as I always do on these weekends, encourage the ladies that you can ask questions too. This is Australia. Let's begin by understanding how questions and answers amongst the right people in the right setting are most important for a real human civilization. And when we talk about a real human civilization, that's very important for you because you are a human being, and like it or not, you are acting, working, striving, and aspiring in some kind of society, some kind of organized setting for achieving goals. We're going to evaluate those goals. And there's no better way to judge what kind of situation we're in individually and collectively. There's no better way than by referring to Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. In case you don't know, Śrīmad Bhāgavatam takes all the themes of Bhagavad Gita and expands upon them in encyclopedic fashion. Both are books of questions and answers. Both take place in very special locations in India. Bhagavad Gita, as you know, was spoken at Kurukshetra. You'll still find Kurukshetra there in India today. How many of you have been to Kurukshetra? Raise your hands. Yes. So you see, it is not mythology. The conversation that Krishna and Arjuna had there thousands of years ago is still so potent and so dynamic for shaping our life today. So Kurukshetra is a special place. Even before Bhagavad Gita was spoken there. But it is now special for everyone in the world because Bhagavad Gita has been spoken there. And when you access Bhagavad Gita, you are accessing the topmost level of dialogue. You have Krishna, the supreme cause of all causes, conversing with his devotee Arjuna. Arjuna is far beyond the abilities of human beings today. So when you hear what Arjuna and Krishna discuss, you're in for a special treat that can affect your life and the life of society at the deepest level. So that's one conversation in one particular setting, Bhagavad Gita, spoken by Krishna and Arjuna. But there's also Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, spoken several times at Naimisharanya. How many of you have been to Naimisharanya? Ah, 1, 2, yes. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam was spoken there thousands of years ago. And still today you can find Naimisharanya and go there. The places are still there, but many people have forgotten the knowledge. Even in India, the land of Dharma. And we're going to be talking about Dharma because we can't escape it. Dharma means the unerasable essence. Just like when you talk about sugar, you always must talk about sweetness. So Dharma means that unerasable essence of the living entity. Both Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad Bhāgavatam focus on what is the highest Dharma. These bhakti texts of loving devotional service to Krishna recognize that there are lower levels of Dharma. So they're very comprehensive, these books. Very non-sectarian. They don't say, this is the only way. They point out there are other ways that will get you to lesser destinations. But if you want to go to the supreme destination, then you have to take the way presented by the Supreme, presented by Krishna, who in Bhagavad Gita says, only by bhakti, loving devotional service, can I be understood. So let's make our minds peaceful by understanding that the Vedas, especially the bhakti texts, which are the cream of the Vedas, recognize other ways, but they point out that these other ways get you to lesser destinations or incomplete destinations. So if we really want success, we have to know what is complete success and not be so bought off by little trinkets, little toys, like a little child. Partial success. We get so excited when we have partial success, don't we? And of course, you know, partial success is followed by partial disaster. But we keep pushing on because we want something. We may not even recognize what we want. So we talked about the time and place of Kurukshetra. We talked about the time and place of Naimisharanya. What about the time and place now? What's happening now? What do you see happening now? You have gathered here this weekend, and it indeed will be a very special weekend for your life, because we'll talk about things based on knowledge that is incomparable, unsurpassable. When we do an environmental scan, when we look at what's happening to the world around you right now, we find what is called polycrisis. So many crises converging, coming together, hitting you all at once. We would have to be very foolish to not notice. We would have to be very unintelligent to put blinders over our eyes. I don't see anything. I don't see any crisis. Human beings obviously don't know what to do with themselves. They have boom and bust economies. They're destroying their own habitat, their own environment. They're threatening the whole earth with nuclear weapons. Just like you know, India and Pakistan, any moment, can have a go at each other. They both have nuclear weapons. What to speak of the USA, Russia, China, France, UK. So you've got all these problematic situations coming together all at once. So you may wonder, why during your time? Here you are just reaching the prime of your life, and the world has all these problems. Why couldn't it wait for you to become old? Why couldn't the problems wait for you to have your share of material happiness, unrestricted, unaffected by problems? So many persons your age these days feel resentment. Why have we been handed so many problems from the previous generation? Economic issues, political issues, environmental issues, nuclear warfare issues. On and on it goes. Why couldn't we have had a clear chance, a clear opportunity to enjoy in a peaceful atmosphere, to succeed in a peaceful atmosphere? Why us? You're in your 20s, you're in your 30s, the prime of your life, the peak of your short human life, and all these problems are happening. You've gone through many obstacles to come to Australia, the lucky country, but then it looks like the luck has run out. So you're wondering, have you jumped out of the frying pan into the fire? Maybe go back to the frying pan. But you like, and I know the magic word that has been uttered many times for 20 years as we've been doing these weekend retreats. You recognize there are problems here in Australia, but you don't want to go back unless necessary for the parents, because here you have the magic word, infrastructure. And you're already attached to the convenience, right? To the fresh air. You don't have to spend 2 hours each way commuting to work and home. There's running water, there's electricity all the time. So this is what you call infrastructure. And then it's intriguing, interesting to be in Australia, because you can experiment in ways you can't do back home. Back home, you know, everyone's minding your business, watching what you're doing. So you can't diversify, you can't experiment, and you can't be naughty. Whereas here, no one sees what you're doing and no one cares. So that's an opportunity to One person from Mumbai told me his observation about the difference between Australians and Indians. And I agree. I've been going to India hundreds of times since 1977. How many of you were born in how many of you were around in 1977? Yes, Nityananda Priya? I thought you were always so youthful. Maybe he was the one who told me this about the difference. He said, Australians do whatever they want to do and don't care what anyone else thinks about it. And in India, you're always worried, what are others thinking? What do you think? Yeah? How are they seeing me? What are they saying about me? Whereas in Australia, who cares? None of your business, mate. Same in New Zealand. There was recently a situation in which the Prime Minister, current Prime Minister of New Zealand, she started when she was 38, Prime Minister, and her partner and her were not married. And she even had a child before marriage. So the American media, because the USA pretends to be a Christian country with lots of nuclear weapons, the media was like getting on her case. Like, whoa, wait, we've heard that, you know, you and your partner aren't married, and you're expecting. Can you explain this? And she said, what was her answer? Just mind your own business. So this seems like freedom, doesn't it? Yes. You don't have persons breathing down your back, minding your own business. You should be doing like this. You should be doing like that. And here in Australia, you don't have to worry about social pressure to attend a wedding every weekend. I know some devotees from India who move as far away as possible, like to Japan, to Korea. Why? They said, we're just tired of every weekend having to go to a wedding. You work hard during the week, commuting 2 hours to work, 2 hours back from work. The bosses are squeezing you harder and harder. Then you look forward to a weekend of rest and peace and quiet. But no, you have to go to a wedding. So I understand that being in Australia has advantages. Grandmother can't see what you're doing. And parents, your parents are becoming more and more flexible as long as you get good grades and as long as you get the PR, everything else is okay. I often point out that 20 years ago when I first started doing these retreats, it was very rare to find a young man and young woman from India living together. Now you know what's happening better than I. It's so common. And the parents, what do they know? They're across the ocean. But even if the parents would come to know, what do they say? Oh, our children are saving rent money. Right? You tell the parents, well, he's in his room, I'm in my room, maybe someone else is in another room. We're just saving money, saving rent money. As long as you're saving money, everything is fine. So times are changing, and we need to take a look at what kind of society we're living in, how we've been shaped, how we've been molded. Because this kind of atmosphere overpowers us. So let's start by talking about success. And then we're going to be able to evaluate the unique contribution of Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. I take it that you all want to be successful? But have you ever questioned yourself about what is success? Or maybe you're just acting on autopilot without ever thinking about what is the success that you see. And where did you get your definition of success from? It's often been said that if you write down every time you reach 10 years in your life, 10 years old, 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, so on, if you write down what you think is success at each of those ages, you'll be shocked to see how different what you write down is from the future. What you write down when you're 20, success will be like this and that and the other, will be different than what you write down when you're 40 or 60. So the goalposts are always shifting when it comes to success. But some or other we think everyone knows what success is. I don't have to think about it. But you do have to think about it. And Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad Bhāgavatam are for motivating you to deal with success. What is real success and what is the illusion of success? There are three items or essentials that you need to know if you're going to evaluate your conception of success. First of all, many people think that there's one single secret to success. And if they find that secret to success, all problems are solved. Actually, that's true on the spiritual platform, in the spiritual dimension, as we will discuss this weekend. but it's not true on the material plane, in the material dimension. Life on the material plane, the material platform, is very intricate and complicated. We're going to discuss how there's so many factors mixed together: your karma, your desires, the surrounding environment. So there's no easy answer in terms of this is the secret for success. Some people will say, just hard work, work hard, you get success. No, life is more complicated than that. Or some people say, like, nice girls finish last. That's the secret of success. You've got to fight it out with everyone else in the jungle of success. Others say, treat other persons as you would want to be treated while everyone's watching you. But in private, do what you like. So maybe you've thought, maybe you've read some books about success. Success Made Easy. Anyone read books like that? No one wants to admit. Or seen movies like that? The Secret. Materially, there is no one secret to success. Success is a very complicated thing, and you'll find that out just by noting how your own conceptions of success change from one decade to another. I remember when I was a little kid, and my mother was very career success orientated. And so even when I was just 7 or 8 years old, the relatives in the family, the aunties and uncles, would all be asking their children, what are you going to be when you grow up? They wanted us to start thinking about that when we were 7 or 8 years old. So I didn't know. I remember I would read the newspaper, the New York Times, and I would look in the job classified section, and I would see big adverts for investment banker, blue chip stock specialist. So I thought, oh, that sounds good. So then when the relatives would ask me, what are you going to be? I was just 7 years old. I'd say, investment analyst. Oh, very good, very good. But then when I was 8 years old, I was looking in the newspaper and saw that there were many adverts for chemical engineers. And I saw that the chemical engineers, they wear these hard hats. And I thought, that would be nice to wear such a hard hat. So the next time the relatives asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said, chemical engineer. Oh, very nice, very nice. No matter what I would say, I want to be this, I want to be that, my mother would note it down, and she would run to the children's bookshop and come back with a book. Your child's future as chemical engineer. Your child's future as investment banker. Was there, at that time, a single secret to success? Is there now a single secret to success? You'd love it. You'd love for it to be so, but it hasn't happened. So the first thing to understand about success is materially speaking, there's no magic bullet. There's no single formula. And when you have the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, you'll understand that material success is a complicated mixture of desire, desire and karma. You may desire unlimitedly, but your karma will limit you. But number two, it's not that you're trying to discover techniques for success, but you're trying to really uncover patterns within you that have shaped your own vision of success. In other words, a lot of your analyzing of success will be looking at what you've inherited from your family, from your society. That's the load you're carrying on your back. I hope you can see that. Just like my mother told me when I was little, if you want to be successful, you have to be three things. Number one, you have to be a scholar. Number two, you have to be an entrepreneur. And number three, you have to be a Christian. That was her success formula. So that's my family baggage. Can you recognize your family baggage? Or maybe you just accept it all without thinking about it. And you're acting on autopilot, carrying around this burden of conceptions that others have downloaded into you. So a lot of your analysis of what means success will be an analysis of what's been downloaded into you. Why are you striving to accomplish what you're striving for? What's pushing you? What do you got in your mind? What do you see in your mind's eye when you see success? Bhakti Yoga, Krishna consciousness, gives you the skills to analyze all that baggage that's been placed on your shoulders. And then you decide, is this what you want? Or you want something higher and better? So then, techniques for success. So many books have been written. You should do like this, you should do like that. This technique, that technique. Goal setting. How many of you have read books about goal setting? A few. What else? Social skills. How many of you read books about social skills? The popular one when I was a kid, and it's still popular today. Maybe some of you have read it. How to Win Friends and Influence People. How many of you read it? Yes, one here. Yes, a few. Yes. An essential shastra. An essential scripture for fighting it out in this success jungle. I remember because my father got me a copy of it when I was 12 years old. My father was worried. He felt I wasn't social enough. I would just watch people and then ask questions. Why is he doing this? Why is she doing that? I remember 8 or 9 years old, and I would see a young adult couple, 18 or 19 years old, sitting on the couch with no distance between them and holding hands. So I would go up to them and say, "Why are you sitting like that?" I was honest and innocent. I was saying, in other words, I was saying, there's so much room on the couch. Why? Why do you have to be so close? And I would ask, what does this holding hands mean? And they would all look at me and smile. You'll find out one day. So my father was worried that I asked so many questions. I'm just watching. He said, son, life is not a spectator sport. You've got to get into it, get on the playing field, achieve, and meet people, and mix with people. So he got me this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. So I read it. And then I even tried it out on one of my father's friends. He took me to his friend's house, and his friend liked to play the organ. In his basement, he had an organ. And so I started asking questions about the organ, very enthusiastically. And my father's friend got very excited. He said, oh, he told my father, he's so interested in the organ. Let me show him. I could give him some lessons. Let's go downstairs into the basement and I'll show him this and that. He was so enthusiastic. My father was looking at me. Very good, son. There you go. This is how the game is played. But I felt horrible. I thought, I'm just being a phony. I don't care about the organ. So according to How to Win Friends and Influence People, written before there were computers, you're supposed to keep an index card. Everyone remembers what anyone remembers what an index card is? An index card file. And you write down the person's name on the card and their interests. So that the next time you meet the person, you have it on record in your file system before computers that this person likes to play the organ, this person, this, that, the other. And that way you influence people. I thought, this is just artificial. So some people think that it's all about goal setting. Such persons have 200 goals per week. Others think it's all about social skills, winning friends and influencing people. Others think it's all about mental powers and visualization. Any of you are into that? Visualizing success. Just like when there's a difficult test coming, difficult exam, maybe the English exam for PR. And so you visualize yourself just succeeding, answering everything perfectly. My brother recently, he runs most of Toyota in the world. And he was going to the White House to meet with the president. And so I asked him, well, how did you prepare before going to the White House to meet the president of the USA? You must have had some agenda and how you're going to proceed. He said, I sat down and I visualized the whole meeting in my mind. I would say this, I would say that, I would say that. So he was a firm believer in visualization. He felt that helped make him very successful. So there are all these various techniques. Is that really going to work for you? Especially when we can't agree on what is success. Even for our own life, our vision of success changes. And then, what about what you want for your children? For you, you might say you just want to be happy. But for your children, you don't want them just to be happy, right? You want them to be safe, secure. Financially stable. There's something about human beings that for themselves, they'll say, I just want to be happy and peaceful. But when you think about your children, your future children, oh, they should be completely successful. Never mind whether they're happy or not. They should have financial security, financial stability. They should be safe. And so this is what most parents will push on their children. Don't worry so much about happiness. You've got to get financial security and stability as the bare minimum, right? That's what you would tell your children, right? What is this happiness? First, get the money. Money first, happiness later. But your children, because they'll be growing up most likely in Australia, they'll be going the opposite way. No, mother, father, happiness first and happiness second. If happiness comes from marijuana and changing partners every weekend, so be it. Everyone has their own kind of happiness. That's what your children will tell you. And you'll try to push on them the old ways, right? You'll try to push on them, think of your financial security, no matter what you do. And they'll be telling you, I want to have fun this weekend. Why do I have to study? And what are you going to say then? Your grandmother would disapprove of this. Your grandfather in Punjab would not like this. And what will the child say to you? But grandfather's in Punjab or Gujarat or Tamil. I'm in Australia. And what are you going to say to that? What can you say? It's a fact. Your children will be in Australia. Unless you have some higher knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, what can you give them? What can you say to them? Just think of the environment they're growing up in. I was just seeing the headlines from New Zealand yesterday that now in New Zealand, and Australia's not far behind, now in New Zealand, more babies are born outside of marriage than within marriage. The norm has shifted. Of course, to the ears of Indians, this is barbaric. But to the ears of Australians and New Zealanders, this is life. So your children will have to be, they'll grow up in a completely different atmosphere, which you know about, but you haven't been immersed in it from birth like your children will have been. So we really need to deal with what is success for the sake of yourself and your children, unless we have many candidates here for the Brahmacharya ashram. Anyone raising hand? No one's raising hand. All right, that's okay. It is true that in the world of bhakti, almost all persons are grihastas. They're family persons. Family persons with Krishna in the center. Those are the foundation of society. The saffron wearers, the brahmacharis, the sannyasis, they are special category. But most persons will be family persons. And families need to know why they're doing what they're doing. And I hope this weekend will help you. So when we think about success, you're thinking about really a single box that contains two boxes. One is the inner box and one is the outer box. So what do I mean by that? Success can be measured in terms of external accomplishments, what the media would write up about you. Just like if the media would, sometimes they write up about me, First thing they go to is Yale graduate. So many presidents of the USA, CEOs come from Yale, topmost lawyers and judges. How is it that you decided to take up the life that you're doing now? So they just see the outer box. When they write up about one of my brothers, the Toyota brother, they'll write, okay, Harvard Law, CAO, Chief Administrative Officer of Toyota, how is it that you achieve these successes? They don't see inside the heart. They don't see inside the mind. They just see the external wrapping. So that's the outer box of success. Maybe that's all you're focused on. But no. Even though you may not realize it, you are concerned about the inner box of success. How you feel. Are you happy? Are you satisfied? Do you understand what is life and the meaning of life? Sometimes you allow yourself to think about these things. That's the inner box of success. So for some people, the inner box is very big, and for others, the inner box is very small. Just like, for example, just to show you how the situation can change. My generation of university students, surveys reveal, thought in this way. 70% of them thought the number one goal in life is to find the meaning of life. And 30% thought the number one goal is to make the money. That was back in the 1970s. Now it's reversed. 70% think the number one goal in life is to make the money, and 30% think the goal of life is to find the purpose, the meaning. So over time, as time passes, the inner box and the outer box one becomes bigger, the other becomes smaller. So what is it for you? Only you can answer that question. What's most important for you? The outer achievements, the things the media will write about you? She came from India when she was 18. She went to Melbourne Uni, RMIT, and then she started at the bottom level of some Australian corporation, and now she is CEO at the age of 60. What do you think? You're thinking that would be glorious. What will be in your outer box of success? Will that be the everything for you? What kind of car you drive? Do you have any investment properties? That's a big thing, right? When you go home and you can tell your neighbors, yes, I have investment properties in Australia. Ooh. When you attend a wedding, and you can show your accomplishments. People look at you. First of all, just because you're working and studying in Australia, they look at you like, certainly you'll be CEO in 5 years, right? It puts pressure on you, doesn't it? You can't be a failure. There's no room for failure. You don't let them know about it. You don't tell them. If you failed an English test, you never tell anyone. I was asking Gopurvandesh Prabhu here. I was saying, what's the most someone has taken the English test for PR? I thought it was 10 times. He told me he knows someone who's done it 60 times. It's really true, 60 times. Unbelievable. So when you go home, people expect of you, your family, your friends, they expect that you've made it big time. They just think that automatically. You may be just in Australia studying cookery, but people back home think, oh, that means you're going to be CEO of McDonald's or something. So this outer box of success may dominate your life, but still, even though it may be very small, the inner box is there. How do I feel? Am I happy? What do I think about my life? Today we're going to try and convince you that by paying attention to the inner box of success, that's the best way for external success, because it'll be sustainable success, not burnout success for you and your children. Another of my brothers, he's just retired. He was a doctor, a CEO doctor of a big medical charity in the USA. And I remember one day, out of just spontaneously, he just started looking at me and crying, and he was saying, "The routine, I can't take it. How did you avoid it?" Now, when I remind him of that, he says, "Oh, I don't remember that." Because that's what you have to do to be successful, right? Those weak moments, you just quickly forget them and you keep pushing ahead. That's what people will praise you for. I remember when he was in med school. He had finished med school, was doing his residency, and he was married, which in the USA they advise you don't marry while you're in med school or doing your residency after med school, because it's such a stressful time. Your marriage will not survive. I know one devotee, he enrolled in med school, and on the first day, when all the med students were gathered in the auditorium, the head of the med school, this is in California, said, among many things in his welcoming address, "I want to say this. If there's anyone here among you new students who's following a spiritual path, I don't care what it is, following some spiritual teacher, I don't care who he is, drop it right now, because you'll never be able to finish your medical studies while having a so-called spiritual lifestyle." He actually said that. So this particular devotee told his parents that, and they immediately said, "Oh, we're moving up there. We're gonna be there with you through medical school. If that's what's gonna be their policy, we parents are going to be there to support you." So yes, it's a true story. If anyone is following any kind of spiritual path, some kind of spiritual teacher, I tell you, drop it now, because you'll never be able to make it through the medical studies. They're so intense, they're so hard. So what would your parents say if they heard that? Huh? He says, drop it, yeah. Or they would say, drop it for now, and then when you're in the 70s, then take up bhakti, right? Yes. They won't tell you, don't be spiritual. They'll just say, at your age, now's the time for material. And then when you're old, in your 60s and 70s, then you can be spiritual. Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad Bhāgavatam disagree with that. And remember, Arjuna was not a yogi in the cave. He was not a sadhu, as we ordinarily think of a sadhu. Arjuna was a military man and a family man. Yet Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to him. Krishna didn't speak Bhagavad Gita to a sannyasi, a brahmachari. He spoke it to Arjuna. On a battlefield, a Kurukshetra, in between two opposing armies. It would be hard for you to find a more intense situation, a more intense setting for what Krishna was going to say. So please understand that what we'll be discussing this weekend is important for you and your circumstances right now. So let's go over the basics of what is a real human society. You might think a real human society means there's an economic system, political system, with a little bit of religiosity sprinkled on top for those who want that. But no, that is not what the Vedas present as a real human society. They'll describe to you, the Vedas will describe to you, a real human society consists of 3 categories. The karmic workers, the metaphysical speculators and mystic yogis, and number 3, those who are worshiping the devatas. That's the material level of a real human society. Of course, the bhakti yogis, the bhaktas, they are beyond the material level. But we're talking about real materialism here. And you don't see real materialism these days. Do you see karmic workers these days? No. Who knows about good karma and bad karma and how to balance the bad karma with the good karma? That's what a real materialist does. So to call someone today a materialist is a great honor, because they don't know how to materially be happy for the moment and in the future. They don't know that. They just know happiness that destroys, destructive happiness, destroying their psychology, destroying their family, destroying the environment. That's all they know. So a real materialist knows how to balance the bad karma with the good karma, so that you have enjoyment in this life and in the next life. How many materialists do you know who are concerned? How am I going to enjoy in the next life? No, they're just thinking it's all about now. That's not material life, that's animal life. The animals are unsurpassable. They're the best at enjoying the moment. The human beings are so crazy that they have designated this kind of happiness, animal happiness, as the greatest. Just be with the moment. Just do it. That's considered the Maha Mantra. Just do it. That Nike advert, that's become the mantra of Kali Yuga. Just do it. If you feel like doing it, just do it. Why restraint? Why worry? Why consideration? Just do it. But this is animal life. That's how animals behave. And you can't be better than an animal. at that kind of thinking. Animals are the most expert at living in the moment. But human beings are supposed to consider the future. How can I act for happiness in a way that doesn't destroy my future possibilities? That's a real human being. So that's a real materialist. The karmi, just like you have the yogi, the jnani, similarly you have the karmi. The karmi is concerned about karma. How many persons do you know who are concerned about karma? No. Just try to be successful. I was talking to my dentist in New Zealand. He's a dentist couple, husband and wife, both are dentists. They have a very high-tech dentist practice in New Zealand, and they treat me for free as a service. And so she was telling me that, they're both from Mumbai. They've been in New Zealand maybe 20, 30 years. Set up very nicely in their dental practice. Husband and wife, both a dentist in the same practice. You would say, oh, this is very nice. Have 2 daughters. Both daughters have gone to med school. Oh, very nice. So she was discussing with me, oh, my oldest daughter's in her early 30s. She's not thinking of marriage. She's just focusing on her medical specialty. I'm worried, she says. She's going to become too old, and it'll be very difficult to get someone to marry her. So I didn't know what to say, but I said, well, if I find anyone in my world travels, I'll let you know. So I said, what are your qualifications? What kind of person do you want? She said, oh, they should be from a nice family. He should be from a nice family. He should be a professional. He should be a vegetarian. That's it. Nothing about he should know what is karma. He should be thinking how to be happy in this life and the next. Nothing about that. Just good family, professional. That means doctor, dentist, chartered accountant, not ordinary accountant, chartered accountant. And, okay, vegetarian. Nothing about offering the food to Krishna. Just vegetarian. So my point is that when you call someone a materialist today, you're actually giving him a great compliment. Because a materialist means someone who knows how to enjoy now and in the future. But the people today don't know how to enjoy now or in the future. They just wreck themselves. And this is the environment that you'll be living in and your children will be growing up in. Just like for the USA, the statistics coming out of intense COVID, who knows if COVID is halfway over or 1/4 over. But the federal government said that 40% of the population, that's 350 million people, 40% have a problem with substance abuse or anxiety disorder. 40%. And they've recommended, their blue ribbon panel of psychologists has recommended that anyone in the USA under the age of 65 should get a checkup for anxiety disorder. Just like you go to a dentist and get a checkup. Similarly, if you're under the age of 65, you should be checked for anxiety disorder. And especially if you're between 14 and 24 years of age, you should get a checkup for depression. This is success. Similar numbers are there in Australia and New Zealand. The suicide rate in the USA for young persons has gone through the roof. Same in Australia and New Zealand. Where is Dira Shiromani? He's here. He works in the hospital in Melbourne. He can tell you they're overloaded with mental health crises. People who are in such a condition. So is this materialism? To call such persons materialists is an undue compliment. A materialist knows how to enjoy the illusion of material happiness now and in the future. I often point out that most people don't think deeply about who is a materialist. They only know one thing. A materialist is someone who has more than me. That's the materialist, right? I have just what I need and I could use a bit more. But the others who have more than me, they are the materialists. That's our definition, our working definition. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has another definition of materialist, which is much more accurate, perfect, and complete. Krishna discusses with Arjuna in chapter 2 how anyone who thinks they are the body, they are a materialist. Whether you are rich or poor, no matter what your income level is, if you think you're the body, you are a materialist. You could be a poor materialist, you could be a rich materialist. So in this way, Bhagavad Gita gives you a much better lens for analyzing yourself and society. So we talked about 3 classes in the Vedic sociology. Class number 1, karmis, expert materialists. I did some sinful activity. I went to some prostitutes, I ate some meat, or I drank some alcohol. Now what'll I do? I'll open up a hospital. Balance the papa, the sinful activity, with the punya, the pious activity. But the so-called happiness that the karmi is trying for is so temporary and limited. It's got those 2 problems. I think you've noticed that. And this weekend is a good time to think about it. How material happiness has 2 big problems that prevent it from ever fulfilling you. Number 1, material happiness is temporary. Number 2, even while it's present, it's so limited, it's so insubstantial. We'll talk more about that in the coming sessions. So once you get tired of being a karmi, what's next? The jnani and the mystic yogi. Of course, you don't see that often in society today. Very rare. The jnani, the metaphysical speculator, can actually intuit with material intelligence that there must be an all-pervading spiritual energy, and that we are different from the body, and we are that all-pervading spiritual energy. That's as far as you'll get in understanding transcendental knowledge, non-material knowledge. That's as far as you'll get with your own intelligence. You can indeed analyze existence and understand there is Brahman, the all-pervading spiritual energy. Once you get tired of karmic activity. It's the same old same thing. Good karma, bad karma. Then you think, maybe there's something spiritual about existence. You speculate that, yes, I can see that I'm different from the body. That means there must be some all-pervading spiritual energy. That's one division of class number 2. The other division is the mystic yogi who wants psychic powers, yogic powers, and thinks that is the goal of life. And then the third level of a material society are the Devata worshippers, the demigod worshippers. They're smart enough to understand that behind nature is conscious control. And so they want to appeal to these devatas, these conscious controllers of nature. Give me a material benefit, please. So they're smart enough, these persons, to understand that there are more powerful beings than human beings. But they aren't smart enough to understand who is the supreme conscious entity. And that's what Bhagavad Gita is about. Therefore, Krishna says, those who go to the demigods for benefits, those who go to the devatas, they are less intelligent and their consciousness is distorted by illusion. So there you have a real human society. You have the karmis, the karmic workers. You have the gyanis, the metaphysical speculators. You have the mystic yogis, the other part of level 2. And in level 3, you have the devata worshippers, who know that there are more powerful beings than human beings. So they'll urge you, worship Surya, worship Durga, worship Ganesh. But they don't know who is the supreme consciousness. Or they mix Krishna in with all the subordinate devatas, the demigods. They do this out of family tradition or just sentiment. Let me ask you this. Give me an honest answer. How many of you, before you would take an exam, went to the temple and did some puja for Saraswati? Raise your hands. A few honest persons. Okay, thank you. They were a bit slow, but now those of you in the front couldn't see. That first is 1 or 2 raised a hand, and then after a while, about 15 others raised a hand. That's a remnant of, that practice is a remnant of demigod worship. And what was your attitude? You didn't really believe it, but you figured, what the heck, right? You never know. Right? How many rupees did it cost you? 100 rupees? Or you just went to the temple and went like that and walked out, didn't put anything in the hundi? How much did it cost? Anyone can say? Huh? What? 51 rupees here. Anyone else higher? Chittamohini, how much? 100 rupees. So what were you thinking? You passed your exam, and so it was a good investment, huh? 100 rupees for Saraswati, I passed my exam. Anyone else more than 100 rupees? No. Huh?
Halwa. Sweet.
Oh, okay. How much did that cost? 51 rupees. 51 rupees worth of halwa. So this practice is the remnant of Devata worship, in which of course, you just do it blindly. The parents say, go do this, right? And you figure it's good insurance policy. You never know.
It's the way of easing your fear.
Huh?
It's the way of easing your fear.
How? How does it ease your fear?
It brings you a bit of happiness for a moment.
How?
Just, you got something, you achieved something.
Passing the exam or giving money 51 rupees?
For that particular moment. It justify your life, whatever the activity.
It's like the things babies put in their mouth. What do they call them here? Pacifier. I think they call them dummies here. Yes, Australians call them dummies. In the U.S., we call them pacifiers. Both names are appropriate. Dummies are for dummies, and pacifiers are supposedly pacify you, make you peaceful, but it's just an illusion. So my point, anyway, is that this is a remnant of Devata worship. It's lost all its authenticity, all its elaborate procedure. But that's life in a real materialistic society. But bhakti, Krishna consciousness, is on another level. And we'll talk about that in our next gathering. But first, I wanted to convince you that to call someone today a materialist is an undue compliment. They don't know how to enjoy material life, what to speak of spiritual life. We can go at it. We have any environmental scientists here? Anyone? No. Yes? No. No money in that, right? Huh? How many IT here? Raise your hands. Oh. Almost 70%. How many engineers? Another 20%. No doctors, huh? Oh, one doctor. Okay. Nurses. Yes. All these hard programs where the guaranteed money is there, right? People will always be sick. You don't have to worry like working for Twitter or Meta and you can get laid off because the demand for social media is reducing. No, doctors, nurses always will have a market. I know my mother, she raised 4 children. She didn't work, except maybe she was a top-level nurse, private nurse. So every once in a while, the hospital would call her up. We have one rich patient who wants his own nurse. He doesn't want the regular hospital staff. So can you come in for a night? And we pay you top dollar because it's this rich person who wants his own private nurse. So my mother would go into work maybe 3 times a month. So that's the way it is for doctors and nurses. There'll always be a demand. This weekend, though, we want to introduce you to another demand. The world, more than ever, needs spiritual scientists, spiritual engineers, spiritual doctors, spiritual nurses, spiritual environmentalists. So I was explaining how if you're a genuine materialist, you don't destroy your own environment. It doesn't make any sense. A materialist understands that you can only extract, pull out of nature a certain amount, and you can only dispose back into nature a certain amount of waste. This is not rocket science, right? But you have these growth-crazy human societies who are proceeding as if nature has no limits. Whereas if you're truly a materialist, you recognize that nature, from the material point of view, is limited. There's a certain amount of resources you can extract before they run out, and there's a certain amount of waste you can dump back into nature without causing problems. That's the material understanding, but you don't see that. Just economic growth, economic growth, economic growth. Everyone wants to see the economy grow, grow, grow. No one cares that nature can't keep up with such demands for growth. Of course, what Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad Bhāgavatam say is much deeper. It says, they say that ordinarily nature has its limits, but because behind nature are conscious controllers, if you please the conscious controllers of nature, nature gives you more. That was the principle behind Devata worship. You're recognizing behind the powers of nature, rain, wind, so on, so forth, there are conscious controllers. If you please those controllers, nature increases its gifts to you. And if you displease those controllers or ignore them, nature restricts what it's giving. But we're talking about materialism. Materialism means nature is fixed. There are no conscious controllers behind nature, and you can only extract a certain amount, pull out of nature a certain amount, and dump back into nature a certain amount. That's what a materialist should think. But they're not thinking like that. They just want economic growth, economic growth. Is the economy growing? You want PR in a country where the economy is growing. You don't want a recession. So a real materialist understands the limitations of nature. Of course, the Vedic materialists understand that there's karma, there are the demigods, the devatas, and nature can increase its gifts to human society according to the behavior of human society, and nature can restrict also. But that's top-level materialism. Above that is the genuine spiritualist who recognizes the cause of all causes, sarva karana karanam, Krishna as the ultimate controller. So why does Krishna say, don't worship the devatas? He's telling you, don't try to bribe the minor officials. Go straight to the top. You know that there, in various countries, which we won't name, there could be problems in having to pay minor officials every time you want something done. I was talking to one devotee who used to be a corporate engineer in Melbourne, and then his family went back to Delhi, and so he had to start a business there. He started a construction business, and he was complaining, I'm not going to pay any bribes. I am not going to pay any bribes. And he got so stressed out trying to do his construction business without paying bribes. And his wife kept telling him, will you stop being so fanatical? This is the way it is. You just pay the bribes and get on with your life. No, I refuse. I refuse. I've come from Australia. We didn't do this there. But then one day, he happily told me that in Delhi, this is Noida actually, the government made a new law that inside all the offices has to be a video camera to record if there's anything going on. So he was very happy for a while. And then what happened after a while? What do you think? Huh? Camera's working, but everyone just goes outside the office and they do the bribing outside the office. Please, let's step outside for a moment. So Krishna in Bhagavad Gita is protesting. Those who worship the devatas are unintelligent. They should come straight to the top. That's not considered bribing. Going to the devatas, bribing. Going straight to the top, watering the tree at the root, that is real intelligence. That is proper. So we're going to discuss more in our next session why what Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad Bhāgavatam offer is the best. But first we had to describe how everything else is insufficient. So we're going to do that more in our next session. But maybe you have some questions about whatever we discussed? Yes, you get a prize, the first brave one. Special lunch prize.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for sharing your journey, your practical experience.
Okay,
of
can you
life.
fix the microphone for him? Thank you.
Hello? Sorry. So thanks a lot for all the your experience that you shared with us. By profession, I'm a curious scientist. So
what scientist?
A curious scientist. So I'm a
Curious
scientist with curious mind
What particular field?
in medicine.
Ah, okay.
So yes, the question that I have is like, of course, I mean during the this weekend we'll have like more information and more knowledge that we can get from you. And is there a fine line between the materialistic and the spiritual, sort of like the transitioning? How like I think one starts, you cannot simply ignore that you will become like 100% spiritual. One has to go through the materialistic like path. And then
What? Wait, hold on. Getting too fast. You're saying one must go through the material phase?
This is how I understand, and I want to this clarification that how in this society where you all mentioned that every doorsteps the people are watching you, your activities, you are being judged. So in this process, while you are growing up and whatever the success that you want to achieve, you have to go through this the materialistic world. You cannot simply ignore it.
Well, wait a minute. I'm also living in this world.
Yeah.
I wear clothes, I have a watch, I'm speaking in a microphone, you're speaking in a microphone. How am I disconnected from the material world? How is that?
Yeah.
My purpose for being in this world is different, but that doesn't mean I'm not in this world. Bhakti Yoga teaches you, whether you're a sannyasi or a householder like Arjuna was, how to live in this world without being caught up in it. That's the topmost mystic yoga. Krishna never told Arjuna, you've read Bhagavad Gita? Krishna never tells Arjuna, I'll drive your chariot, you stay in the back and sleep. Krishna tells him, act and think of me. Arm yourself with yoga. Bhagavad Gita is an action book spoken in the most active setting, the battlefield. So it's not about ignoring the material world and its responsibilities. It's about having a different purpose for living. Just like a surgeon's knife can be used to cure someone or to kill someone. It depends on how it's used. How do you use this environment? Do you destroy it, or do you act in the environment in such a way that you show gratitude, you show stewardship, care? Everything depends on your purpose. That's why Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says, Rasaham apsukontaya, I'm the taste and water. Prabhasmi shasi surya, I'm the light of the sun and the moon. Krishna is showing you that all the elements of nature are his energies.
So are we talking about the coexistence or the symbiotic relation between these two?
A microphone, please.
So are we talking about the coexistence, or in other words, the symbiotic relationship that is like,
Two things come from the sun, heat and light. They coexist. Similarly, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate. Krishna says he's the origin of everything material and spiritual. Both emanate from him. So therefore, the Krishna devotee, the bhakti yogi, knows how to handle both the spiritual and the material energies because they're both coming from Krishna. So the question is then how to utilize these energies for the purposes of Krishna. When something belongs to someone else, you want to use those items according to the purpose of the owner. Okay?
So what is the right balance between material life and spiritual life?
You take care of your body, you take care of your family for the purpose of self-realization, Krishna consciousness. I'm taking care of my body. This morning, 8 o'clock, I didn't want to, but I did some exercise. Why? Because I travel. I often don't have anyone traveling with me, and I have to lift my own luggage, so I need some muscles. So this morning, for 20 minutes, I got resistance cables. You know what resistance cables are? And I didn't want to, but I was thinking, for Krishna's service, it's better I do this. Because I can't be traveling somewhere in the middle of nowhere in India and all of a sudden, I get a bad back or strained muscle and I can't lift anything. It may happen. Still, I want to do my part to make sure it doesn't happen. So you...
On the same line, I'm so sorry. And on the same line, just now, before that you said that one of your friends said that life have become so monotonous.
That was my middle brother.
Yeah. So,
The
how
CEO doctor.
Yeah. So how to keep oneself to keep on doing same thing. I know that like doing exercise is very good for me, but then still there come day that I don't want to do anything. So how to keep ourselves motivated to do something? Even though it is like everyday same thing.
What's your purpose in doing it?
To have a good health.
But I'm thinking more than having good health. I'm thinking, yes, good health for the pleasure of Krishna. I want to engage in Krishna's service. Krishna has given me this equipment, this body. It is my responsibility to take care of it as best I can. It won't last forever, but while I have it, I should take care of it. Why? So I can enjoy material life? No, so I can engage in Krishna's service. Purpose is what makes everything different.
Thank you.
Very good question. You're the first lady to ask the question. You get a special prize for lunch. Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaji, thank you for the wonderful lecture. I had this question like, there are people in India who have been worshipping the demigods all their life, and when you tell them that Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead, they say like, you don't know anything. Like we are worshipping Shiva, we are worshipping Durga, they are the Supreme Personalities, and they just don't accept it.
You ask them, do they accept Bhagavad Gita? Almost everyone in India accepts Bhagavad Gita, but they never read it. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Aham adir hi devanam. I am the origin of all the demigods. Kamais tais taya hitagana prapajyantenya devata. Those who worship the demigods are of less intelligence. Their intelligence is distorted by lust. They can't see past their desires. They can't see where the benedictions actually come from. It's actually Krishna who is the supreme controller. So if you accept Bhagavad Gita, then you understand. If someone wants to concoct something, suppose I tell you, I'm the Queen of England, what would you say? You would tell me, you can say what you like, but who will accept? Similarly, people can say so many things, but what does Bhagavad Gita say? That is the point.
I'm sorry, like those people, they do read Bhagavad Gita, but they understand it from their perspective.
But we should understand Bhagavad Gita from whose perspective? Krishna's perspective. He's the speaker. He says, I am the origin of all the demigods. Those who worship the demigods are of less intelligence. They're breaking the rules. They're bribing the minor city officials and ignoring the mayor. That's an example.
I'm sorry, like I did tell them this, and they take it as an offense. And they
You have to, well, then if someone doesn't want to hear, there's no point in agitating their mind. You can say it once. If they don't want to accept it, just move on.
Thank you.
And gradually, you pray to Krishna that your own example can influence people more. You take your lack of being able to convince them as your own fault.
Thank you.
And just think, maybe previously in life you were like them, yes?
Yeah.
Ah, you can tell us about that. No.
Hare Krishna. My question is that how to make life stable?
You'll be here the whole weekend?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
So we'll discuss chanting the Hare Krishna mantra as a daily practice. Seek your stability on the spiritual platform, not the material platform. The material platform is very shaky. It appears and disappears. Whereas the spiritual platform is eternally solid. So you'll find that by chanting Hare Krishna, taking shelter of the Hare Krishna mantra every day, suddenly you can see clearly. Right now you're trying to see, and the window of your mind is covered with so much mud.
That's the thing. Yeah.
So you have to get the mud off the window so you can see straight.
But while taking the name of Krishna and the chanting, everything is all right. But when we go into the real world, professional world,
The real world?
Yes.
Wait a minute now. We're going to have a debate about what is the real world.
material world, that's what I mean. My bad. So like the material things are taking us like from all the sides of the. So how to read off this
If your chanting is done properly with attention, especially first thing in the morning, you'll have the strength to handle your working day.
Yeah.
Just like Arjuna could handle the battlefield. At first he didn't want to fight. But it was his duty because he's a warrior. And the other side was attacking his family. He was duty-bound to respond, but he was being very soft-hearted. Bhagavad Gita is not about like a resource war or oil war. The other side that Arjuna is fighting against, they did horrible things. They tried to burn down the house of Arjuna's family. Arsonists. They tried to administer poison to his family. They did so many things like that any normal person would have to respond to protect his family, especially Arjuna, who's a military man. So that's why Krishna is chastising him. How can you not fight? It's your duty. You're a military man. You're meant to stand up for the innocent. And your own family is innocent. It's your family, and they're being attacked. Someone's trying to kill your family, and you're talking about nonviolence? But that's how soft-hearted Arjuna had become. So Krishna is encouraging him to act, but act for my pleasure, for Krishna's pleasure. That's the real world. So Arjuna, when he was fighting, he was really fighting. So once you finish your daily morning practice of chanting Hare Krishna, you'll be able to face the day with spiritual strength. So I recommend that's what you do. The more attentive and the more quality there is to your chanting in the morning, the stronger you'll be. You take shelter of the sound of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. Okay? Where's the young... Yeah, you had a question. You see. No, let him ask. You were listening?
Yeah, I was.
Thank you.
So if...
You're here with your parents?
Yeah.
That's your mother?
Yes, that's my mother.
I thought it was your sister.
No. So my question is, if Krishna is the supreme God, and if Krishna is the origin of all the demigods, and is basically the origin of nature, why do the demigods exist?
Why do the demigods what?
Exist.
They're servants of Krishna. A master has servants. You're also a servant of Krishna, but you're not as powerful as the devatas. Krishna is the supreme consciousness, and we are tiny particles of consciousness meant to exist for Krishna's pleasure. The demigods have capabilities, material capabilities, far beyond what humans can do. But still, both humans and devatas are Krishna's servants. Sometimes they forget.
Thank you.
I thank you. You get a special treat for lunch too.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I wanted to ask you that you said that Kurukshetra is a special land. So was there any specific reason behind that Mahabharata took place over there for the 18 days or something like that?
Yes, it was the special reason was it was a deserted place. Because war in Mahabharata doesn't mean kill civilians like war means today. War today means kill civilians, and among the civilians, who first to kill? Women and children. That's considered animal life, savagery. But Kurukshetra, I don't know how it is today. I haven't been there for a while, but At the time of the Kurukshetra war, it was totally remote place, far from the civilians. But human beings have descended so low these days that war always involves civilians. Terrorize the civilians, make the government collapse. This is barbaric. So sometimes people say, oh, Bhagavad Gita is advocating violence. It is not like that. No civilians were affected. It was just the Kshatriyas, the Vedic warriors, in a remote place having a battle, and whoever won would be in charge of the people. But the people were not affected by the violence. Okay? Many questions today. Very good.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. This is a question from my friend. Like he asked me yesterday, that what if a human doesn't believe in God and he's just doing his daily work and living as a good human? He doesn't mean any harm to anyone, and he never meant any harm to anyone in the past. And he just does his normal daily work, comes back home, and the next day it's just normal day. Will he get to heaven, or will he achieve moksha, or will he go to the hell, or what? Thank you.
So he's a good thief. A very well-mannered, gentlemanly thief. He's using resources without understanding the resources belong to someone. So it's like saying, suppose there's a nice pickpocket. It almost happened to me. I was at the train station in Delhi going to Vrindavan, and I had a shoulder bag, and I put the shoulder bag down at my feet. I was standing on the platform in the Delhi train station waiting for the train, and of course I knew about pickpockets. So I felt, out of nowhere, I felt this very slight tap on my back, which would have made an ordinary person immediately turn around. But I felt this little tap on my back, and I thought, don't turn around, look at your bag. And I looked right at my bag, and right in front of me was this guy. And I looked right in his eye, he looked in my eye, he kind of went like, and took off. So he was operating in a team with the guy behind me, but they were so expert. It was such a touch that would make anyone just instinctively and this guy was in front of me so quietly. Yeah, it's like he appeared out of nowhere. But they're expert. That's their profession. So I knew enough. Don't look behind your shoulder. Look at what's in front of you. Nowadays there'd be pistols. It's happened to you?
Oh, well, the crime city.
Hare Krishna Babuji. I have a question, continuation question of what was asked earlier by the Mataji around this Krishna being the supreme God. So there are two aspects of it. One, yes, it's written or it's been told by Lord Krishna himself that I'm the supreme God. But so, like, in no disrespect to anyone, but if a person is saying, or God is saying, or that I'm the supreme one, does that mean that they are the supreme one?
In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives you the laboratory process for verifying what he says. Now, who else is doing that? Krishna doesn't simply say, I am this. He also gives you the procedure for verifying what he says. Now, whether someone wants to do that verification or not is another question. But the methodology is there. But so many are not interested. They just say, why is Krishna saying this about himself? But Krishna is mercifully giving you the procedures for verifying what he's saying about himself.
Sure. And is that something that we'll cover in the 2 days? Or how to...
I hope to inspire you to read Bhagavad Gita as it is and apply it in your life.
Fair enough. It's continuation of that. So when he say I, does he mean, because we know that Krishna is one of the avatars of Lord Vishnu. So when he say I,
but Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, there's nothing beyond him. Matta parataram nanyat. That means not even Vishnu, not even Narayan, what to speak of the Devatas, not even the Brahman. He says, Brahmano hi pratishtaham. The Brahman is based on me, the person. So if you want Bhagavad Gita, there it is.
so when he was saying him, was it meant that him as a third person Lord Vishnu?
When you say me, who are you referring to? Is it the person behind you, or?
Depend, if I'm an avatar, then I might mean...
But
if I'm the only person.
okay, that's very good. You consider Krishna an avatar, so we can leave it that far. But Krishna does say there's nothing beyond him, not even Vishnu or Narayan. But we're happy that you accept Krishna as an avatar, not an ordinary being. All right.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Actually, my question is that many people are using Krishna name like a business. So is that the offense of Krishna?
Can you give me an example?
Like one people who is saying he will meet us and say Hare Krishna, but he has the Bhagavad Gita also. He is not doing chanting, but...
That problem is there all over the world, that someone says the right thing, but they're not acting according to what they say. You can't blame Krishna for that. But some persons are following Krishna's instruction, and you should try to associate with them. So this weekend is giving you the opportunity to associate with those who are following Krishna's instructions carefully. So we're happy that you've come.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
You've mixed with the right crowd.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you for the lecture. I just wanted to know that in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says that I am Om and Omkar, I am Himalayas and all the Parvat. So he explains that he is like a Sheshnag, everything. But we rarely see any complete form of Krishna, like any deity.
Complete form?
Like I have seen a picture online where I have seen Krishna in between, but all the demigods...
Krishna what?
I have seen a picture online, like on Google or any other sources.
What's the picture of?
So there's a Krishna in between, and beside...
I missed one word. Krishna what? In the middle.
Krishna in the middle, yes.
And who's surrounding Krishna?
And I see that there are all demigods this
Yes.
side and that side. So
As Rig Veda says, Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam. All the devatas are looking up to the lotus feet of Vishnu.
So I just have one question, that why there is like, I have not seen those deities in temples or any pictures in any of the temples in mostly in India or even here in ISKCON. So I just have that question.
Because we're following Krishna's instruction that by focusing on Krishna, everyone is included. When you water the tree at the root, all the branches blossom.
Thank you.
There are so many temples you can go to, they have everyone on the altar, right? Lottie-dottie and everybody. Vishnu, Durga, Nehru, everyone, everything. All possibilities are there. But this is improper. You have to recognize who is Sarva Karna Karna, the cause of all causes. The demigods actually like it much better if you approach Krishna. But because there are unintelligent persons who treat the devatas as independent, therefore you have devata worship. But the demigods actually like it better if you approach Krishna, because they're all actually devotees of Krishna. Especially Lord Shiva. He's the greatest devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I'm glad that many of you are concerned about Devata Puja, because you've been doing elements of it, or you've seen elements of it, but you never understood what the science is behind it. There is a supreme conscious entity, Krishna, and then there are the subordinate conscious entities, the parts. The devatas have more powerful bodies than human beings, but they're not supreme. They're like minor government officials. They're not the president, they're not the prime minister. So this afternoon we'll go deeper. We'll look at a verse from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam about what is real dharma and what is cheating dharma. So I thank you for the wonderful questions, very lively. So now please have a wonderful lunch. Save your questions for next time, please. There'll be more time. Okay? Or you must ask now. All right. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.